DeKalb County, Ruth the Truth Stringer here. I've gotten over my outrage. I've gotten over my disappointment. I've gotten over my sadness at watching a fellow officer treat George Floyd the way he did. There's no excuse for it, and we can no longer tolerate this type of behavior. It's time for action. When a leader stands before you from this point on, they need to come to you with action. They need to come to you with a plan. No more of the placating and the statements of how sympathetic they are. They need a plan. I come to you with the plan. DeKalb County, as any law enforcement officer who's worth his or her salt, a leader would do, I looked at that agency's policy. That agency policy actually allows for the use of neck restraints and chokeholds. I was shocked and surprised. What that tells me is that agency needs to review their policy. It actually says that the subject is placed in a neck restraint with the intent to control and not to render the subject unconscious by only applying light to moderate pressure. Unconscious neck restraint. The subject is placed in a neck restraint with the intention of rendering the person unconscious by applying adequate pressure. That's in their policy. I found it outrageous. As a leader, I'm saying to you, every agency from today, they need to look at their policy, their use of force policies, and make sure they don't have statements like that. Anything rendering anyone unconscious. Chokeholds should be outlawed unless you're in a fight for your life and it's the only way out. I have a plan, DeKalb County. President Barack Obama came up with the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. It was a great blueprint and it was a great foundation. Now we need to take it a step further. Every officer needs to have a psychological evaluation. And when I say that, I don't mean the ones that we are doing traditionally right now. I mean this president, this governor, the local official. We need to get the top law enforcement officers in the room along with the top psychologists and psychiatrists, and we need to met out what a law enforcement officer should look like. I don't mean a law enforcement, the physical appearance. I mean the mental and emotional and psychological appearance of the officer. What should that look like, and how do we determine that the officer has the traits? That's up to the psychologists and the psychiatrists to met out. They will put out the measures and the testing for that. DeKalb County, no more should the testing psychiatrist or psychologist be hired as a vendor by an agency. Because when you're hired as a vendor, you can change your opinion based on what the head of the agency wants. I think that the state, and this is going to take maybe a year or so for us to get in place, but we need to move now so that we don't have another George Floyd. We don't have another Michael. We don't have those incidents. The state needs to have a bank of psychologists and psychologists, and they need to be sent out weekly, monthly, daily, and they need to do the testing for all law enforcement agencies. They need to have determined what an officer looks like, what the psychology, what the makeup of an officer should look like, and they should go out and do the testing. They should be paid by the state. They should be able to freely say, this officer is not qualified to be a law enforcement officer. No longer should the head of any law enforcement agency be able to hire a friend or family member who does not pass a psychological exam simply because they can exert pressure on a vendor, a psychiatrist who may be a vendor, and have them to change the results of the exam. That needs to change. It's unacceptable. We need to move forward, DeKalb County, and in doing so, we'll set these parameters in place. There will be a definite model. There will be a definite litmus for testing. It will be agreed upon by law enforcement agencies across the state, across the country, even better. So when you move from Florida to Georgia to South Carolina to North Carolina, all law enforcement officers have had the same testing. There will be no difference. We'll know that we're safe no matter where we go. For the officers who are currently working, I have said it before and I say it again. Every officer needs to be tested psychologically every 3 to 5 years. This needs to be done because of what an officer goes through and what he or she may see in the course of their employment with an agency. Officers see many things. They see murders, deaths, suicides, child molestations, rapes, decapitations. They see so many things in the course of their careers. It affects them. They need to be tested. They need to make sure they are sound for the community. DeKalb County, this is Ruth the Truth Stringer, and I am telling you, something needs to be done. Action needs to be taken now so that we are not facing this again. If we don't do something now, nationally, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we're going to be in the same position saying something needs to happen. We're going to be enraged, outraged, upset, crying because we failed to act. We can't do that, DeKalb County. Let's move forward. Let's act.